Jean, please. Her voice cracked as his tattooed hand cupped her face, thumb brushing away a tear that froze halfway down her cheek. Behind them, 100 people dressed in black sat motionless in the snow, witnesses to something that should never have happened. You said you'd never do this. You promised her. His jaw tightened, eyes darker than the ink sprawling up his neck. I lied. The crowd gasped. Somewhere in the distance, his sister screamed his name. But Jean Choi, the man who had turned away 100 women without blinking, the man whose heart was supposed to be as frozen as the ground beneath their feet, pulled Brielle Jackson closer and whispered the 3 words that would change everything. I choose you. The wedding had been perfect until Jean walked in. That was 3 months ago, and Brielle still remembered the way every head turned when the doors opened. Not because he was late. Not because he wore a black suit to a winter wedding where everyone else sparkled in jewels and silk. But because when Jean Choi entered a room, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Brielle had been standing near the dessert table, laughing at something Seo had said, when she felt it. That prickle on the back of her neck. The kind that made you turn around even when you didn't want to. And there he was. Tall. Sharp. Beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. His eyes swept across the room like he was counting exits, calculating threats, deciding who mattered and who didn't. Their eyes met for half a second. Maybe less. But in that moment, Brielle saw something flicker across his face. Surprise? Curiosity? It vanished so quickly she thought she imagined it. Then he looked away, and she became invisible again. That's my brother, Seo had whispered, squeezing Brielle's arm. Jean. Don't worry about him. He's always like that. Cold as ice. Brielle nodded, but her heart was doing something strange in her chest. Something she didn't understand. Something she knew she should ignore. She didn't know then that Jean had already decided. The moment he saw her smile, heard her laugh, watched the way she touched his sister's hand with such genuine warmth, he knew. This woman was dangerous. This woman could ruin him. So he did what he always did when something threatened his control. He stayed far, far away. But fate, as it turned out, had other plans. Brielle's apartment was small but cozy, tucked into a neighborhood in Brooklyn where the rent was just low enough that she could afford it on a teacher's salary. She loved her life. Loved her kids at school. Loved her Friday night dinners with Seo. Loved the way the morning sun hit her kitchen window and made everything glow gold. What she didn't love was the knock on her door at 2 in the morning. She stumbled out of bed, heart racing, and pressed her eye to the peephole. A man stood in the hallway. Tall. Broad shoulders. Face half hidden in shadow. Who is it? Her voice came out shakier than she wanted. Seo's brother. Brielle's blood went cold. She knew that voice. Low. Controlled. The kind of voice that didn't ask twice. She opened the door a crack, chain still attached. What do you want? Jean stood there in dark jeans and a black coat, snowflakes melting in his hair. Up close, he was even more devastating. His face was all sharp lines and shadows, but his eyes. God, his eyes. They looked tired. Almost human. Seo's in trouble, he said. I need your help. What kind of trouble? The kind I can't fix alone. Brielle's hands trembled as she unhooked the chain. This was stupid. She barely knew this man. Barely knew anything about him except that Seo loved him and feared him in equal measure. But Seo was her best friend. Her sister in every way that mattered. Give me 2 minutes, she said. Jean nodded. Didn't smile. Didn't thank her. Just waited in the hallway like a statue while she threw on jeans and a sweater, grabbed her coat and keys. When she stepped out, he was already walking toward the elevator. Wait, she called, jogging to catch up. You didn't tell me what happened. In the car. What car? He pressed the button. The elevator doors opened. Mine. The car was exactly what Brielle expected. Black. Expensive. Leather seats that probably cost more than her rent. Jean drove in silence, jaw tight, hands steady on the wheel. The city blurred past them, streetlights painting gold stripes across his face. Seo got involved with someone she shouldn't have, he finally said. His voice was flat, emotionless. Someone who works for people I've been trying to keep her away from her entire life. What people? He glanced at her. Just for a second. But in that second, Brielle saw something that made her stomach drop. You don't want to know. If you're asking for my help, I need to know. Jean was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed, and for the first time since she met him, he looked almost human. Almost vulnerable. My family isn't exactly legal, he said. We run things. Control things. And there are other families who want what we have. Co fell for a guy who's connected to one of them. She thinks it's love. I think it's a setup. Brielle's mouth went dry. You're in the Mafia. I prefer the term organized business. That's literally the same thing. Details. She should have been terrified. Should have demanded he take her home. Should have called the police, called CO, called someone. But all she could think about was her best friend in danger. What do you need me to do? She asked. Jin's eyes flickered to her again. This time, they stayed a little longer. And for the first time since they met, something like respect crossed his face. Talk to her, he said. She won't listen to me. But she trusts you. And if I can't convince her? His hands tightened on the wheel. Then I'll have to do things my way. And nobody wants that. The weight of his words settled over the car like snow. Heavy. Cold. Suffocating. Brielle swallowed hard. Where is she now? Safe house in Queens. I've got people watching her. But she's stubborn. She'll try to leave. She gets that from you, you know. Jin's lips twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. I know. Before we continue, I need to ask you something. Have you ever had a friend make a choice that scared you? A choice you knew was wrong, but they couldn't see it? Drop a comment and let me know, because what happens next is going to hit different if you've been there. The safe house wasn't what Brielle expected. No guards. No guns. Just a normal-looking brownstone with warm lights in the windows. Jean parked across the street and killed the engine. She's on the second floor, he said. Third window from the left. Brielle looked up. Sure enough, she could see Co's silhouette pacing back and forth, phone pressed to her ear. She doesn't know I'm coming, does she? No. She's going to be pissed. Probably. At both of us. Jean finally looked at her. Really looked at her. And for a moment, Brielle forgot how to breathe. His eyes weren't cold anymore. They were sad. Desperate. Human. I don't care if she hates me, he said quietly. As long as she's alive to hate me. Something in Brielle's chest cracked open. This man. This dangerous, beautiful, terrifying man. He loved his sister. Loved her enough to be the villain in her story if it meant keeping her safe. Okay, Brielle whispered. I'll try. Jean nodded. Then he did something that surprised her. He reached out and touched her hand. Just for a second. Just long enough for her to feel the warmth of his skin, the calluses on his palm, the slight tremor in his fingers. Thank you, he said. Then he pulled away, and the walls went back up. The ice returned. The cold, untouchable Mafia boss was back. But Brielle had felt it. That flicker of something real. Something warm. Something that made her wonder what other secrets Jean Choi was hiding beneath all that frost. She got out of the car and crossed the street, heart pounding. Behind her, she could feel Jean watching. Could feel the weight of his gaze on her back. Could feel something shifting between them. Something neither of them was ready to name. This was supposed to be simple. Help her friend. Go home. Forget about the dangerous man with sad eyes and gentle hands. But as Brielle climbed the steps to the brownstone, she knew with absolute certainty that nothing about this was going to be simple. Nothing about Jean was ever going to be simple again. Co opened the door on the third knock, eyes red and swollen. When she saw Brielle, her face crumpled. He sent you. Not a question. An accusation. He's worried about you, Brielle said softly, stepping inside. The apartment was sparse. A couch. A table. Nothing personal. Nothing that said home. Can we talk? Co laughed, but it came out bitter and broken. Talk? About what? About how my brother thinks I'm too stupid to make my own choices. About how he's kept me in a cage my whole life and called it protection. Brielle closed the door behind her. Through the window, she could see Jin's car still parked across the street. Could imagine him sitting there in the dark, waiting. Worrying. He loves you, Brielle said. He controls me. Sio paced to the window, arms wrapped around herself. You don't understand what it's like, Bri. Growing up in his shadow. Never being allowed to breathe without someone watching. Never being allowed to love without permission. Tell me about him. The guy. Sio's face softened. Just a little. Just enough. His name is Taeyong. He makes me laugh. Makes me feel seen. He doesn't care about my family or what they do or who they are. He just sees me. And Jean thinks he's dangerous. Jean thinks everyone is dangerous. Brielle sat down on the couch, patting the cushion beside her. Sio hesitated, then joined her, curling into herself like a child. What if he's right? Brielle asked gently. What if this guy is using you? What if he's not? Sio's voice cracked. What if this is my one chance at something real, and Jean ruins it like he ruins everything? The words hung in the air between them, heavy with years of resentment. Years of love twisted into something sharp and painful. Sio, Brielle said carefully. I know you're angry. I know you feel trapped. But your brother. He's not doing this to hurt you. He's terrified of losing you. Then he should let me live my own life. Even if it kills you. Sio flinched. Looked away. You sound just like him. Maybe because we both love you. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, snow began to fall again, fat flakes drifting past the window like tiny ghosts. Brielle thought about Jean sitting in that car. Thought about the way his hand had trembled when he touched hers. Thought about what it must cost him to care this much in a world that punished caring. Let me meet him, Brielle finally said. This Taeyong. Let me talk to him. If he's real, if he really loves you, then I'll tell Jean to back off. But if he's not, if there's even a chance your brother is right, you have to promise me you'll listen. Sio wiped her eyes. You'd do that? Go against Jean for me. I'd do it for you. Not against him. There's a difference. Something shifted in Sio's expression. Something like hope. Something like trust. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Jean was exactly where Brielle expected him to be. Still in the car. Still watching the window. When she slid into the passenger seat, he didn't look at her. Just kept his eyes on that third window from the left. Well. His voice was rough. Tired. She'll let me meet him. This Taeyong guy. Tomorrow. Jin's jaw clenched. No. Excuse me. I said no. It's too dangerous. Brielle turned to face him, anger flaring hot in her chest. You asked for my help. I'm helping. You don't get to tell me no. I'm not letting you walk into a situation where you could get hurt. I'm not yours to let or not let do anything. Finally, Jean looked at her, and the intensity in his eyes nearly knocked the air from her lungs. You don't understand what these people are capable of. Then explain it to me. They kill, Brielle. They torture. They destroy everything they touch. And if they think for 1 second that you matter to me, that you're connected to my family, they will use you. They will hurt you. And I can't. His voice broke. Actually broke. I can't let that happen. The confession hung between them like something fragile and precious. Something neither of them knew how to hold. I don't matter to you, Brielle said quietly. We just met. Jin's hand moved to the steering wheel, gripping it so hard his knuckles went white. That's what I keep telling myself. Brielle's heart stopped. Started again. Beat so loud she was sure he could hear it. Jean. Forget I said that. I can't. Try. But neither of them moved. Neither of them looked away. And in the silence, something grew. Something warm and terrifying and inevitable. I'm meeting him tomorrow, Brielle said firmly. With or without your permission. But I'd rather do it with your help. Jean closed his eyes. Breathed out slowly. When he opened them again, the walls were back up. The ice had returned. But Brielle had seen beneath it. Had seen the man behind the mask. And she knew she'd never be able to unsee it. "Fine," he said. "But I'm coming with you. And you do exactly what I say. Understood?" "Understood." "I mean it, Brielle. One wrong move and this whole thing goes sideways." "I get it." He studied her face for a long moment, searching for something. Fear, maybe. Hesitation. But all he found was determination. Strength. The kind of strength that made his chest ache with something he refused to name. "You're stubborn," he said. "You're controlling." "I know. Does it bother you? That I don't just do what you say?" Jin's lips curved into something that almost looked like a smile. Almost. "It terrifies me." And somehow, Brielle knew he wasn't talking about the mission. Wasn't talking about Seo or Taeyong or any of this mess they'd found themselves in. He was talking about her. About the way she made him feel. About the way she'd slipped past his defenses without even trying. "Good," she whispered. "You should be terrified. Because I'm not going anywhere." Jin started the engine, but his hands were shaking. "That's what I'm afraid of." The meeting was set for noon at a cafe in Manhattan. Neutral ground. Public. Safe, or as safe as anything could be in Jin's world. Brielle wore jeans and a sweater, trying to look casual even though her heart was racing. Jin had given her an earpiece, small and nearly invisible, so he could hear everything. "I'll be 3 tables away," he'd said that morning. "You won't see me, but I'll be watching. If anything feels wrong, anything at all, you say the word apple. Just work it into conversation. Can you do that?" "Apple. Got it." "I'm serious, Brielle." "So am I." Now she sat at a corner table, hands wrapped around a coffee cup she couldn't drink, watching the door. Seo had promised Taeyong would come alone. Had promised he was a good guy. But promises, Brielle was learning, didn't mean much in this world. The door opened. A man walked in. Mid-20s. Handsome in a soft, gentle way that was nothing like Jin's sharp edges. He had kind eyes. A shy smile. He looked normal. "Brielle?" he asked, approaching the table. "Taeyong. Thanks for meeting me." He sat down, ordering tea when the waitress came by. He seemed nervous. Kept glancing at the door. At the windows. At her. "Seo talks about you all the time," he said. "Her best friend. The teacher. The one who makes her laugh. She talks about you too." "Does she?" His whole face lit up. "What does she say?" "That you make her happy." "I try." He wrapped his hands around his cup when it arrived, steam rising between them. "I know her brother doesn't approve. I know he thinks I don't know, using her or something. But I'm not. I love her. I really do." Brielle wanted to believe him. Wanted to see exactly what she was seeing. A nice guy. A real guy. Someone who genuinely cared about her friend. But Jin's voice echoed in her ear through the hidden device. "Ask him about his family." Brielle leaned forward. "Tell me about yourself. Your family. What you do." Something flickered across Taeyong's face. Something quick and dark. Then it was gone. "My family? They're complicated." "How so?" "My father runs a business. Import, export. That kind of thing." "What kind of imports?" Taeyong's smile tightened. "Why does it matter?" "It doesn't. I'm just curious." "Check his left wrist," Jin's voice crackled in her ear. "If he's who I think he is, he'll have a tattoo. Small. A snake eating its own tail." Brielle's pulse quickened. "Can I ask you something else?" "Sure." "Do you have any tattoos?" Taeyong froze. Just for a second. But that second told Brielle everything she needed to know. "Why would you ask that?" His voice had changed. Colder now. Sharper. Just making conversation. He pushed up his sleeve slowly. And there it was. The snake. Eating its own tail. Exactly where Jin said it would be. "Get out," Jin's voice commanded in her ear. "Now." But before Brielle could move, Taeyong leaned forward. You're working with him, aren't you? With Jean. I don't know what you mean. Don't lie to me. His hand shot across the table, gripping her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to trap. You're wearing a wire. I can see it. Brielle's blood turned to ice. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Let me go. Not until you tell Jean something for me. Taeyong smiled, but it was nothing like the gentle expression from before. This smile was cruel. Calculated. Tell him Seo is already mine. Has been for weeks. And there's nothing he can do about it. Suddenly Jean was there. Moving so fast Brielle barely saw him. One moment Taeyong had her wrist. The next, he was slammed against the wall, Jin's forearm pressed against his throat. You touch her again, Jean growled, and I'll kill you with my bare hands. People screamed. Chairs scattered. But Jean didn't move. Didn't blink. Just pressed harder until Taeyong's face turned purple. Jean, stop. Brielle grabbed his arm. You're going to kill him. That's the point. Please. Something in her voice broke through. Jean released him, letting Taeyong collapse to the floor, gasping. Then he grabbed Brielle's hand and pulled her toward the exit. We need to get to Seo, he said. Now. They ran. Through streets and alleys. Jin's hand locked around hers like he was afraid she'd disappear. His car was parked 2 blocks away, and by the time they reached it, Brielle's lungs were burning. Call her, Jean commanded, starting the engine. Call Seo right now. Brielle dialed with shaking hands. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. Voicemail. She's not answering. Jin's face went pale. He pressed the gas pedal to the floor, the car lurching forward so fast Brielle was thrown back against her seat. Jean, slow down. I can't lose her. His voice cracked. I can't. She's all I have. You won't. We'll find her. You don't understand. That tattoo. That symbol. It means Taeyong works for the Beck family. They've been trying to destroy us for years. If he has Seo, if he's been planning this. He couldn't finish. Couldn't say the words. But Brielle heard them anyway. If Taeyong had Seo, she was as good as dead. They reached the safe house in 10 minutes. The door was open, swinging in the wind. Inside, furniture was overturned. Glass shattered. And on the wall, written in red lipstick, were 3 words. She came willingly. Jean fell to his knees. Actually fell. Like all the strength had drained from his body. And Brielle, watching this powerful, dangerous man break apart, felt her heart shatter with him. She knelt beside him, pulling his head against her shoulder. He didn't cry. Didn't make a sound. Just held onto her like she was the only solid thing in a world that had just collapsed. We'll find her, Brielle whispered. I promise. We'll bring her home. Jean pulled back, looking at her with eyes so full of pain it hurt to meet them. Why are you still here? Why haven't you run? Because you need me. You should be terrified of me. I am. She cupped his face, thumbs brushing his cheekbones. But I'm not leaving. Something shifted in his expression. Something raw and desperate and real. And before Brielle could breathe, before she could think, Jean kissed her. It wasn't gentle. Wasn't soft. It was fury and fear and need all tangled together. His hands in her hair. Her hands on his chest. The world spinning and burning and disappearing until nothing existed except this moment. This man. This impossible, terrifying, beautiful feeling. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jean pressed his forehead against hers. I can't do this, he whispered. Do what? Care about you. Not now. Not when everything is falling apart. Too late. He laughed. It came out broken and sad. Yeah. Too late. They spent the next 2 hours calling everyone Jean knew. His men. His contacts. Anyone who might have information. But Taeyong and Seo had vanished like smoke. Brielle made coffee neither of them drank. Paced the apartment while Jean sat at the table, phone pressed to his ear, voice getting harder and colder with each call. Nothing, he finally said, throwing the phone down. It's like they disappeared into thin air. They can't just be gone. The Beck family is good at hiding. They have safe houses all over the city. Could be anywhere. Brielle sat across from him. Then we think. We use our heads. What would Taeyong want? What's his endgame? Power. Control. They want to destroy my family, take over our territory. So this isn't about love. It never was. No. Jin's fists clenched on the table. He played her. Made her fall for him. And she walked right into the trap because of me. Because I made her so desperate to escape that she'd trust anyone who offered freedom. This isn't your fault. Yes, it is. He looked at her, and the guilt in his eyes was devastating. I pushed her away. I tried to control her instead of trusting her. And now she's gone, and it's my fault. Brielle reached across the table, taking his hand. Then we fix it. Together. You keep saying that. Together. Like you're part of this. I am part of this. Why? Jin's voice rose, frustration and fear bleeding through. Why would you risk your life for my mess? For my family? You should be running as far from me as possible. Because I see you. Brielle stood, slamming her hands on the table. I see past the ice and the walls and the fear. I see a man who loves his sister so much it's killing him. I see someone who's been alone for so long he forgot what it feels like to let someone in. And I'm not running, Jean. I'm not leaving. So stop pushing me away and let me help. The silence that followed was deafening. Jean stared at her like she'd just spoken a language he didn't understand. Like she'd reached into his chest and pulled out something he buried so deep he forgot it existed. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Probably not. But you've got me anyway. His phone buzzed. Both of them jumped. Jean grabbed it, reading the message. His face went white. What is it? It's from Taeyong. Jin's hand trembled as he turned the screen toward her. He wants to meet. Tomorrow night. Alone. It's a trap. I know. You can't go. I have to. He stood jaw set, eyes hard. He has my sister. He wants me. Fine. He can have me. And then what? He kills you both. Then at least we go together. Brielle's heart cracked wide open. No. We're smarter than that. We plan. We think. We. There's no we. Jin's voice echoed through the apartment. Don't you get it? This is where you walk away. This is where you save yourself. Because tomorrow night, I'm probably going to die. And I won't let you die with me. Tears burned Brielle's eyes. You don't get to decide that. Yes, I do. No. She moved around the table, standing right in front of him. Close enough to feel his breath. Close enough to see the fear behind all that anger. I'm coming with you. And you can't stop me. Brielle. I love her too, Jean. CO is my family. And like it or not, you're becoming my family too. So we're doing this together, or we're not doing it at all. For a long moment, Jean just looked at her. Then, slowly, carefully, he pulled her into his arms. Held her so tight she could barely breathe. And against her hair, so quiet she almost missed it, he whispered, "Thank you." They planned through the night. Jean called in every favor he had. Every man who owed him. Every resource at his disposal. By dawn, they had a strategy. Risky. Dangerous. But possible. Brielle hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw CO's face. Heard Taeyong's cruel laugh. Felt Jin's hand in hers, solid and real and terrifying. You should eat something, Jean said, appearing with toast and eggs. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. You need your strength. She took the plate, picking at the food. Jean sat beside her on the couch, close enough that their shoulders touched. Close enough that she could feel his warmth. Can I ask you something? Brielle said quietly. Anything. Why did you kiss me? Yesterday. In the safe house. Jean was quiet for a long time. Then, because I thought it might be my only chance. And now. Now I'm hoping I was wrong. Brielle set down the plate and turned to face him. When this is over, when we get Sio back, what happens to us? Us. Don't pretend you don't feel it. Jin's hand found hers, fingers intertwining. I feel it. I felt it since the moment I saw you at that wedding. But my life. It's not safe. It's not normal. Anyone who gets close to me becomes a target. I know. And you still want this. Brielle thought about her quiet life. Her safe apartment. Her predictable routine. Thought about how empty it all felt now. How colorless. How small. I want you, she said simply. Everything else, we'll figure out. Jin leaned in, pressing his forehead against hers. You're insane. Probably. And stubborn. Definitely. And perfect. The word hung between them like a promise. Like a prayer. And when Jin kissed her this time, it was different. Softer. Slower. Like he was memorizing the taste of her. Like he was trying to hold onto something precious before it slipped away. When they pulled apart, Brielle saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Hope. We're going to get her back, she said. Yeah, Jin whispered. We are. Real talk for a second. If you've made it this far, you're invested in this story. You care about Jin and Brielle and Sio. And I need you to do me a favor. Hit that like button. Not for me, but because stories like this, stories that make you feel something real, deserve to be shared. And if you don't hit it, this video gets buried, and nobody else gets to feel what you're feeling right now. So do it. For them. The meeting place was an abandoned warehouse by the river. Of course it was. Every bad thing in Jin's world seemed to happen in places like this. Dark. Empty. Perfect for making people disappear. Jin parked 3 blocks away. His men were already in position. Surrounding the building. Ready to move on his signal. But Jin would go in alone first. That was the deal. I'm coming with you, Brielle said. We talked about this. And I told you I'm not staying in the car. Jin turned to her, cupping her face in both hands. If something happens to me, nothing's going to happen. If it does, run. Don't look back. Just run. Jin. Promise me. Brielle couldn't speak. Couldn't promise something they both knew was a lie. So she kissed him instead. Poured everything she felt into it. Every fear. Every hope. Every impossible dream of a future they might never have. When they finally pulled apart, Jin's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'm falling in love with you, he said. And it's the worst timing in the entire world. Brielle laughed through her own tears. Tell me about it. They got out of the car. Walked side by side toward the warehouse. And with every step, Brielle felt the weight of what they were about to do. The danger. The risk. The very real possibility that neither of them would walk back out. But she also felt Jin's hand in hers. Felt the steady rhythm of his breathing. Felt the certainty that whatever happened next, they'd face it together. The warehouse door was unlocked. Inside, it was exactly as dark and ominous as Brielle expected. Concrete floors. Rusted beams. Shadows everywhere. And in the center, tied to a chair, was Sio. Sio. Brielle started to run, but Jin grabbed her arm. Wait. It's too easy. He was right. Sio's head was down, hair covering her face. She wasn't moving. Wasn't struggling. Is she? She's breathing. Look at her chest. Brielle watched. Sure enough, Sio's chest rose and fell slowly. She was alive. But unconscious. Well, well. A voice echoed from the shadows. Taeyong stepped into the dim light, followed by 3 large men with guns. You actually came. I'm impressed, Jin. I thought you'd send your dogs and hide like you always do. Let her go, Jin said, voice deadly calm. This is between us. Oh, but it's not. Taeyong circled them like a predator. This is about your father. About what he took from my family 20 years ago. This is about revenge. My father's dead. But you're not. And you'll do nicely. Jin's hand moved toward his jacket, where Brielle knew he kept his gun. But Taeyong was faster. He pulled out a pistol, aiming it directly at Seo's head. "Try it," Taeyong said. "See what happens." Jin froze. His face went pale. And Brielle watched him do the impossible. Watched him choose his sister over his pride. Over his safety. He raised his hands. "Smart," Taeyong said. Then his eyes slid to Brielle. "But you brought company. How sweet. Is this the new girlfriend? Leave her out of this." "Can't do that. See, killing you would be satisfying. But killing you in front of someone you love? That's poetic." Jin stepped in front of Brielle, blocking her with his body. "You want me? Fine. Take me. But let them go. Both of them." Taeyong pretended to consider it. Tempting. "But no. I think I'll keep the girl. She's pretty. Might be useful." Rage flashed across Jin's face. Pure, unfiltered rage. "Touch her and I swear to God." "You'll what?" "You're unarmed. Outnumbered. Your men are good, but mine are better. By now, they're probably all dead." Jin's jaw clenched. But he didn't move. Didn't fight. Just stood there, protecting Brielle with his body, trying to figure out a way to save everyone. And that's when Brielle saw it. Saw the truth that Jin couldn't see because he was too busy being a hero. Seo's fingers were moving. Just slightly. Just enough. She wasn't unconscious. She was faking it. Brielle's heart leaped. She needed to signal Jin. Needed to tell him. But how? Taeyong was watching them like a hawk. So she did the only thing she could think of. She stumbled forward, pretending to trip, grabbing Jin's arm. And in that moment, she whispered a single word. "Ready." Jin's eyes flickered to Seo. Back to Brielle. Understanding dawned on his face. He smiled. Actually smiled. And it was the most terrifying, beautiful thing Brielle had ever seen. "You know what?" Jin said, voice suddenly light. Almost amused. "You're right. I am outnumbered. Outgunned. Completely at your mercy. Finally, you understand. But you made one mistake." "Oh." Taeyong raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "You underestimated my sister." Seo's eyes snapped open. In one fluid motion, she ripped her hands free from the ropes she'd been working loose for the past 5 minutes, grabbed the gun from Taeyong's belt, and aimed it at his head. "Nobody talks about my brother like that," she said. Chaos erupted. Taeyong's men raised their weapons, but Jin was faster. He pulled Brielle down behind a concrete pillar, drew his own gun, and fired. 1, 2, 3 shots. 3 men fell. Seo kept her gun trained on Taeyong, who stood frozen, hands raised. "You think this changes anything?" he spat. "My family will hunt you down. All of you." "Let them try," Jin said, standing. He walked slowly toward Taeyong, gun steady. "But first, you're going to deliver a message." "What message?" Jin leaned in close, voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "Touch my family again, and there won't be enough of you left to bury." Then he pulled back and knocked Taeyong out cold with a single punch. The warehouse fell silent. Seo lowered her gun, hands shaking. Jin ran to her, pulling her into his arms. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" "I'm fine. I'm fine." Seo pulled back, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. You were right. About everything. I was so stupid." "Sure. None of that matters. You're safe. That's all I care about." Brielle watched them, tears blurring her vision. This was what family looked like. What love looked like. Messy and imperfect and absolutely beautiful. Seo looked over Jin's shoulder at Brielle. "You came for me." "Of course I did. Even though it was dangerous. Especially because it was dangerous." Seo laughed through her tears. Then she pulled Brielle into the hug, the 3 of them holding each other in the middle of that dark, terrible warehouse. Holding each other like they'd never let go. Outside, sirens wailed. Jin's men secured the perimeter. And slowly, carefully, they walked out of the darkness and into the light. The police took Taeyong into custody. Jin's lawyer made sure the right people got the right story. And by the time the sun rose, it was over. Really over. Brielle sat on Jin's couch, wrapped in a blanket, hands wrapped around coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. Sio was asleep in the guest room. Safe. Alive. Home. Jin appeared in the doorway, fresh from the shower, hair still damp. He sat beside her, close enough that their legs touched. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "I don't know. Ask me tomorrow." Fair. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Brielle said, "I've been thinking. About what you said. About your life not being safe." Jin's face fell. "Brielle. Let me finish." She turned to face him. "You're right. Your life isn't safe. It's complicated and dangerous and completely insane. But here's the thing. I don't care. You should. Probably. But I don't." She took his hand, lacing their fingers together. "I spent my whole life playing it safe. Doing what I was supposed to do. Being who everyone expected me to be. And I was miserable. Then I met you, and for the first time, I felt alive." Jin's thumb traced circles on her palm. "You could get hurt. I could get hurt crossing the street. Life doesn't come with guarantees. This is different. I know. And I'm choosing it anyway. I'm choosing you." Jin closed his eyes, like her words physically hurt. "Why?" "Because when I look at you, I see home. I see possibility. I see a future that scares me and excites me in equal measure." She cupped his face, making him look at her. "And because I'm falling in love with you too. And I'm tired of fighting it." For a moment, Jin just stared at her. Then he kissed her. Deep and slow and full of promise. His hands in her hair. Her hands on his chest. The world falling away until nothing existed except this moment. This choice. This leap into the unknown. When they finally pulled apart, Jin pressed his forehead against hers. "I can't promise you easy," he whispered. "I don't want easy. I can't promise you normal. Normal is overrated. But I can promise you this." He pulled back, looking into her eyes. "I will protect you with everything I have. I will choose you every single day. And I will love you with everything I am." Brielle's heart soared. "That's all I need." They stayed like that for a long time. Holding each other. Breathing together. Building something new and fragile and absolutely terrifying out of the ashes of everything that had burned. And when Sio woke up hours later and found them curled together on the couch, she smiled. Because for the first time in years, her brother looked peaceful. Looked happy. Looked like he'd finally found something worth more than all the power and control in the world. He'd found love. 3 months later, Brielle stood in front of her bathroom mirror, trying to decide if she was really doing this. The dress was beautiful. Simple. Elegant. But still. A dress. To a formal dinner with Jin's family. With people who lived in his world. In that dangerous, complicated, impossible world she'd chosen to be part of. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jin. "You're beautiful. Stop overthinking. I'll be there in 5. She smiled. Somehow, he always knew. When the knock came, she opened the door to find Jin in a suit. Not the casual clothes she was used to, but a real suit. Tailored. Expensive. He looked devastating. "Wow," she breathed. "Right back at you." He stepped inside, eyes roaming over her like he was seeing her for the first time. "Ready?" "Nervous?" "Don't be. They'll love you. Your family runs a criminal empire." Details. Brielle laughed despite herself. "You're ridiculous. And you love me anyway." "Unfortunately." Jin pulled her close, kissing her softly. "Thank you." "For what?" "For choosing this. For choosing me. For being brave enough to build something beautiful in the middle of my mess." Brielle's eyes burned with tears. "Thank you for letting me in." They drove to the restaurant in comfortable silence, hands intertwined on the center console. And when they walked in together, heads turned. Whispers followed. But Jin just kept his hand on the small of her back, guiding her forward, claiming her in front of everyone who mattered. The dinner was surprisingly normal. Jin's family was warm, welcoming. They asked about her teaching, her life, her dreams. They made her laugh, made her feel like she belonged. And when Sio stood to give a toast, Brielle felt tears slip down her cheeks. "To my brother," Sio said, raising her glass, "who spent his whole life protecting everyone else and finally let someone protect him. And to Brielle, the woman brave enough to love a man who thought he was unlovable. Thank you for bringing him back to us." Everyone drank. Everyone cheered. And under the table, Jin squeezed Brielle's hand so tight it almost hurt. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too." 6 months after that, on a cold December morning, Brielle woke to find her apartment full of roses. Red ones, white ones, pink ones, everywhere, on every surface, filling every corner. She stumbled out of bed, heart racing, and found Jean standing in her living room in jeans and a sweater, looking nervous in a way she'd never seen before. "What is this?" she asked. "I had a plan," Jean said. "A whole elaborate thing. Dinner. Music. The perfect moment. But then I woke up this morning and realized I couldn't wait another second." "Jean." He dropped to one knee, pulled out a small velvet box, opened it to reveal a ring that took her breath away. "I know we've only been together for 9 months. I know this is fast. I know my life is chaos and danger and nothing you signed up for. But I also know that every morning I wake up and choose you. Every night I go to sleep grateful you chose me. And I want to spend the rest of my life doing exactly that. Choosing you. Loving you. Building a future with you." His voice cracked. "So, Brielle Jackson, will you marry me?" Brielle couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only nod through tears that wouldn't stop falling. "Yes," she finally managed. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." Jean slipped the ring on her finger, then stood, pulling her into his arms, kissing her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning, holding her like she was precious and fragile and absolutely everything. And in that moment, surrounded by roses in her tiny Brooklyn apartment, Brielle knew she'd made the right choice. The terrifying, dangerous, beautiful choice to love a man who'd spent his whole life behind walls. Because sometimes, the best things in life are the ones that scare you the most. Sometimes, love isn't safe or easy or simple. Sometimes, it's just worth it. Listen, if this story moved you, if you felt something real, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe. Not because I'm asking, but because you deserve more stories like this. Stories that make you believe in love again. Stories that remind you that even broken people can find their way home. And if you don't subscribe, you'll miss the next one. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. The wedding was small. Intimate. Just family and close friends in a garden covered in snow. Brielle wore white. Jean wore black. And when they stood under that arch, promising forever to each other, there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Sio was the maid of honor, tears streaming down her face. Jin's mother, elegant and fierce, smiled like she'd waited her whole life for this moment. And when the officiant said, "You may kiss your bride," Jean cupped Brielle's face like she was made of glass and kissed her with a tenderness that made the world stop spinning. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "I love you too." They turned to face their guests, hand in hand, and everyone erupted in cheers. Throwing flowers. Clapping. Celebrating two people who'd found each other in the middle of chaos and chosen to build something beautiful anyway. At the reception, Jean pulled Brielle onto the dance floor for their first dance as husband and wife. The song was slow and sweet, and as they swayed together, Jean leaned down to whisper in her ear, "Remember that day at the wedding? When I first saw you?" "Yeah. I knew then. I didn't want to know. Tried to convince myself I was imagining it. But I knew." Brielle pulled back to look at him. "Knew what?" "That you were going to change my life." His eyes were soft, vulnerable. "That you were going to ruin me in the best possible way." "And did I?" Jean smiled. That rare, genuine smile that still made her heart skip. Completely. They danced until their feet hurt, laughed until their faces ached. And when the night finally ended, when the guests had gone home and the flowers had wilted and the lights had dimmed, they stood together in the empty garden, holding each other under a sky full of stars. "What are you thinking?" Brielle asked. Jean was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm thinking about all the women I turned away. All the people who tried to get close. All the years I spent alone, convinced I was better off that way. And I'm grateful for every single one. Because they led me here. To you. To this moment. To this life I never thought I deserved." Brielle's eyes filled with tears for the 100th time that day. "You deserve it. You deserve all of it. Only because you make me believe it." They stood there for a long time, two people who'd found each other against impossible odds. Two people who'd chosen love over fear. Who'd chosen hope over doubt. Who'd chosen each other over everything else. And as snow began to fall around them, soft and silent and perfect, Jean pulled Brielle closer. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. The real me. Not the monster everyone else sees. Not the criminal or the killer or the cold man with no heart. Just me." Brielle reached up, brushing snow from his hair. "That's because that's who you are. Everything else is just armor. But underneath, you're the most beautiful person I've ever known." Jean kissed her then. Soft and slow. A promise. A prayer. A beginning. And somewhere in the distance, Sia watched from the window, smiling through happy tears. Because her brother, the man who'd rejected 100 women, the man who'd built walls so high no one could climb them, had finally let someone in. Had finally let himself be loved. Had finally come home. The snow fell heavier now, covering the garden in white. Covering the past. Making everything new. And as Jean and Brielle walked back toward the warmth of the house, hand in hand, hearts full, futures intertwined, one thing was certain. Love, real love, was worth every risk. Every fear. Every impossible leap into the unknown. Because when you find the person who sees your darkness and chooses to stay anyway, when you find the person who makes you brave enough to believe in tomorrow, you don't let them go. You hold on. You fight. You choose them. Every single day. For the rest of your life. And that, more than anything else, is what makes a happy ending real.